"Sir, I'm scared. Mom won't wake up." The little girl said it to the wrong man on the wrong street in the middle of a Boston snowstorm. Or maybe for the first time in her life, she had found exactly the right one. She was 4 years old, walking alone with bare hands, a red coat too thin for January, and a voice so small the wind nearly stole it. The man she stopped was Grant Callahan, a crime boss feared from the harbor to South Boston. Men twice her size crossed the street to avoid him, but she didn't know his name. She only knew her mother was on the kitchen floor. And when Grant looked into that child's terrified eyes, something buried in him broke open. Stay with this story because one act of mercy is about to change 3 lives forever. Like this video and comment where you're watching from. Grant did not move right away after the little girl said it. For half a second, the whole street seemed to hold its breath with him. Snow slid down the black windows of the SUV. The wind pushed between the buildings and lifted the edge of June's thin red coat. Somewhere behind him, the Marlowe room glowed with expensive light, warm food-polished glasses, and men who thought the world could be bought if you knew which hands to shake. But in front of him stood a child, with bare fingers, wet lashes, and terror pressed into every inch of her small body. Grant Callahan had spent his life learning how not to react. He had watched men beg without blinking. He had heard threats and promises and prayers, and most of them had sounded the same to him. Noise, weakness, leverage. He knew how to stand still while other people broke apart. His father had taught him that stillness was power. But June Walker was not begging for herself. She was asking for her mother. That made the words different. Owen Briggs took one step closer, his shoulders blocking part of the alley. He was already measuring angles, rooftops, dark cars, open windows. In his world, a child could be bait. A sob could be a trap. A small voice in the snow could lead a man into an ambush. Boss Owen said quietly. Grant raised 2 fingers. Owen stopped. The little girl watched them both with the stunned patience of a child who did not understand danger the way grown men did. She did not know that Owen carried a gun under his coat. She did not know that the man kneeling in front of her had more enemies than friends. She only knew that the cold hurt, and her mother had not answered when she cried. Grant lowered himself until his eyes were level with hers. "What's your name?" Her lips trembled before the answer came. "June." "June what?" "June Walker." Her voice cracked on her last name as if even saying it took strength she no longer had. Grant looked at her hands. They were red and swollen from cold, the nails bitten down the knuckles scraped raw where she must have fallen. He slipped off his gloves and held them out. "Put these on." June stared at them. "They're too big." "They'll still work." She took them carefully as if the gloves were expensive because she could somehow feel that they were. They swallowed her hands and most of her forearms. She flexed her fingers inside the leather and looked down at them with a confused little frown. Then she remembered why she was there. "Mommy's on the floor. I heard you." She was making soup. Then she dropped the spoon. Then she sat down, but not like sitting. She fell. Grant's chest tightened. Not visibly. Nothing changed in his face. But inside him, a door he had nailed shut decades ago shifted on its hinges. Did she hit her head? I don't know. Is she breathing? June blinked fast. I put my cheek by her mouth like she does when I pretend to sleep. I think so. Grant looked toward the SUV. Owen, call it in. Ambulance to East Boston. Near St. Bridget's Church. Tell them possible diabetic crisis and unconscious adult female. Owen had his phone out before Grant finished. June looked up at Grant. You know where St. Bridget's is? Yes. Do you know my house? No. She swallowed. I can show you. Grant stood and took off his black wool coat. The wind cut into his sweater immediately, but he did not react. He wrapped the coat around June's shoulders. It was far too large, falling past her knees, making her look like a tiny bird trapped in a curtain of a midnight cloth. June clutched the front of it. It's warm. Good. Are you cold now? Grant opened the rear door of the SUV. No, that was a lie. He felt the cold. He simply did not let it matter. June climbed into the back seat with awkward effort, her small boots slipping against the running board. Grant steadied her with one hand on her shoulder. The gesture was so light it barely counted as touch. Owen got behind the wheel. Grant slid in beside June. The door shut and the city went quiet around them. June sat stiffly, knees together, gloved hands in her lap. Her eyes moved around the vehicle. The stitched leather, the small lights in the roof, the tinted glass. She looked like she had entered another country. Owen pulled away from the curb. Which way? Grant asked. June leaned toward the window. That way. Past the store with the blue sign. Then the street with the big church. But not the pretty church, the brown one. Owen glanced at Grant in the mirror. Grant nodded once. The SUV moved through Boston with silent force. Tires hissed over slush. Snow blurred the traffic lights into red and green halos. The buildings of Back Bay gave way to darker streets, older brick, narrower sidewalks, and apartment windows glowing with the tired blue light of televisions. June pressed her forehead close to the glass. My mommy said I should never go outside at night. She was right. June looked at him, then frightened all over again. I had to. I know. I tried the phone, but it wouldn't wake up either. The battery was dead. I think so. It was black. Grant looked toward Owen. Owen was still speaking into his phone, giving clipped details to emergency dispatch with military calm. June's breathing had started to shake, not from cold now, from the delayed terror of what she had done. She had been brave while moving. Sitting still made room for fear. Grant knew that feeling too well. He lowered his voice. You did the right thing. June stared at her huge gloves. I was scared. Being scared does not mean you did the wrong thing. She considered that. Mommy says brave people can cry. Grant felt something twist under his ribs. She is right. Do you cry? Owen's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. Grant looked out at the snow. Number? June studied him with open curiosity. Not ever. No. That's sad. The words were simple. Not accusing, not dramatic, just a child naming what she saw. Grant did not answer. Outside, the SUV turned onto a street lined with tired brick buildings and parked cars buried under snow. A church bell tower rose in the distance, its brown stone dark against the sky. One of the stained glass windows had plywood over it. June sat up. That's it, the brown church. We live near there. Owen slowed. Which building? June pointed. The red one. With the stairs on the outside that Mommy says not to touch. Grant saw it. 5 stories of old brick. A rusted fire escape clinging to the side like a broken ladder. Several windows had plastic taped over the frames. The front light flickered weakly above the door. A trash bag had split open near the curb, and snow had begun to cover the spilled contents like a bad secret. Owen stopped the SUV. Grant was out before the engine settled. June tried to climb out after him, but the coat tangled around her legs. Grant lifted her down and set her on the sidewalk. She immediately grabbed 2 fingers of his bare hand. Her fingers were tiny through his gloves. He let her hold on. The front door did not lock. It did not even close properly. Someone had wedged a folded piece of cardboard near the frame to keep it from swinging open in the wind. Grant stared at the broken latch. His jaw moved once. Owen noticed. You know this place. Grant did not answer. June tugged his hand. Come on. The hallway smelled of old grease, damp carpet, and bleach poured over rot. The stairs were narrow and worn through the middle. One bulb worked on the second-floor landing. The next 2 were dead. June climbed fast despite the oversized coat, but by the 3rd floor her breath came in little bursts. Grant lifted her. She stiffened in surprise. I can walk. I know. He carried her anyway. She put one gloved hand against his shoulder, not fully trusting him, not fully resisting either. On the 4th floor, she pointed down the hall. That one, 4C. The apartment door was open. June had left it that way when she ran for help. Grant set her down behind him. Stay with Owen. June shook her head hard. No. Mommy needs me. Grant crouched again, blocking the doorway with his body. "Your mother needs doctors. Right now, you need to let me go in first." June's eyes filled. "If I don't go in, she'll think I left her." Those words reached into Grant and found the child he had buried. He softened his voice. "She will know you came back." June stared at him. "How?" "Because I will tell her." For some reason, that was enough. She stepped back beside Owen. Grant entered the apartment. The first thing he noticed was not the woman. It was the cleanliness. The place was poor, but it was cared for. The floor had been swept. Dishes were stacked neatly in a drying rack. A blanket had been folded over the arm of a small sofa. Children's books sat in a crate by the window arranged by size. A paper snowflake hung above the radiator cut unevenly by small hands. Then the other details arrived. A stack of unpaid bills on the kitchen counter. A pharmacy receipt with a balance circled in pen. A notice from the landlord taped inside a cabinet door, hidden from anyone who might casually walk in. The refrigerator had 3 drawings on it, each one full of wild color and crooked hearts. One drawing showed a woman and a little girl standing under a yellow sun. Above them, in shaky letters, June had written "Me and Mommy." Grant looked away from it. Claire Walker lay on the floor between the kitchen and the small dining table. She was on her side, one arm stretched toward the counter as if she had tried to catch herself. Her dark hair was spread across the linoleum. She wore blue scrubs and white socks with a hole near the heel. Her face was pale. Her lips had a faint bluish tint. Her breathing was shallow, uneven, and too quiet. Grant knelt beside her. He checked her pulse. Weak, but there. Owen. Owen appeared in the doorway, keeping June behind him. "Ambulance is 2 minutes out." Grant scanned the counter. A glucometer, a used test strip, an empty insulin pen, a cracked orange juice cup beside the sink, a plastic lunchbox with one sandwich inside cut into the shape of a star. His eyes moved to the refrigerator. Almost empty. Milk, half a jar of peanut butter, 2 apples, a bottle of generic orange drink, a container of soup, probably the one June had mentioned. Grant had known poverty as a business condition. Numbers on reports, tenant categories, risk levels, payment patterns. This was different. This had a child's drawing on the refrigerator. This had a woman on the floor. June peeked around Owen's leg. "Is she dead?" The apartment seemed to go still. Grant turned his head. He remembered being 7 years old, standing in a kitchen in South Boston, staring at his mother's hand on the tile. He had asked that same question to a paramedic who would not look at him. Then he asked his father later, and Patrick Callahan had lit a cigarette outside the hospital and told him to stop sounding weak. Grant looked at June and gave her the answer no one had given him. "No, she is breathing." June's face crumpled, but she did not cry yet. "Why won't she wake up? She is very sick. Can you fix it? The doctors can help her. But can you?" Grant did not lie. "I can get the right people here." A siren wailed in the distance, rising fast. June heard it and pressed both hands over her ears. Owen knelt beside her. His huge body looked absurdly careful in the tiny hallway. "That sound means help is coming," he said. June looked at him. "You're very big." Owen blinked once. "Yes." "Are you a doctor?" "No." "Are you a giant?" Owen glanced at Grant. "Not officially." June did not smile, but her breathing steadied a little. The paramedics arrived, hard and fast, boots pounding up the stairs, bags swinging from their shoulders. Grant stood back as they crowded around Claire. He answered questions with the same precision he used in negotiations. Name unknown at first. Claire Walker from a letter on the table. Age approximately early 30s. Unconscious when found. Possible diabetic crisis. Child reported collapse during food preparation. Insulin pen empty. Food scarce. One paramedic looked at Grant with quick surprise, as if he had not expected this man to understand what mattered. Then he returned to Claire. June edged forward. "Mommy." A female paramedic looked up. "Sweetheart, we're helping her." June took another step. Grant caught her gently by the shoulder. "Let them work." June shook under his hand. She hates hospitals. So do I. That made June look at him. You do? Yes. Then why are we going? Because sometimes the place you hate is the place that keeps someone alive. June absorbed this with grave seriousness. The paramedics lifted Claire onto the stretcher. Her head rolled slightly to the side and June made a small broken sound. Grant heard it and hated it. The female paramedic moved to block June from following. Sweetheart, you need to stay here with another grown-up. June panicked. No, I have to go with Mommy. The paramedic looked at Grant. Sir, are you family? No. Then we need to contact someone. There is no one here. Then child services will need to be involved. Grant's voice lowered. Later. She rides with her mother now. The paramedic was tired cold and not in the mood for rich men giving orders. She opened her mouth. Owen stepped into the edge of the light. Grant did not raise his voice. This child walked through a snowstorm because every other option failed her. Do not make her watch that ambulance leave without her mother. The paramedic looked from Grant to June. June was crying silently now, her mouth pressed shut, tears tracking down her red cheeks. The paramedic exhaled. She sits where I put her. She does not move unless I say. Grant nodded. Agreed. June climbed into the ambulance and held Claire's limp hand with both of Grant's gloves still hanging off her arms. Grant watched the ambulance doors close. Snow landed on his black sweater and melted. Owen stood beside him. You want me to get the car? Grant looked up at the fourth-floor window. The apartment light was still on. From the street it looked like any other poor apartment in any hard city. Small, tired, easy to ignore. Yes. They followed the ambulance to Massachusetts General Hospital. The ride was silent. Grant sat in the back seat and stared at nothing. His phone vibrated twice. He ignored it. A man in Charlestown was waiting for confirmation on a deal. A council aide wanted to know whether Grant approved new terms. Someone from the harbor had sent a coded message about a shipment delay. All of it felt far away. Owen watched him through the mirror. Finally he spoke. You knew what to look for back there. Grant said nothing. Owen waited. Grant looked at the snow streaking across the window. My mother collapsed in front of me when I was 7. Owen's eyes shifted slightly. Grant never talked about his mother. She was making breakfast. Grant continued. His voice was flat, but not empty. That was worse. She dropped a glass. I remember the milk moving across the floor. I remember thinking I would be in trouble if it reached the rug. He stopped. Owen did not interrupt. I called her name until my throat hurt. I did not know what else to do. Owen slowed at a red light. Did she make it? Grant looked at him. No. The light turned green. Owen drove on. At the hospital, Claire was taken through emergency doors before Grant reached the entrance. June stood in the hallway with her arms wrapped around herself, swallowed by his coat. Her face pale under the fluorescent lights. The emergency room was full of winter misery. A man with frostbitten fingers cursed softly into a blanket. A teenage boy held a bloody towel against his eyebrow while his mother filled out forms. A woman in a business suit cried into her phone near the vending machines. Nurses moved with controlled exhaustion, their shoes squeaking across the polished floor. June looked very small in the middle of it. Grant walked to her. They took Mommy. I know. Can I go where she went? Not yet. Why? Because they need room to help her. June's mouth trembled. What if she wakes up and I'm not there? Grant crouched in front of her. Then I will tell her you are right here. You promise. Grant held her gaze. Yes. A nurse approached them. Her name badge read Tara. Are you the father? No. Relative. No. Tara's expression changed. Not unkindly, but with caution. And the child. June Walker. Her mother is Claire Walker. She was brought in unconscious from East Boston. Tara glanced at Owen, then back to Grant. Sir, if you are not family, we need to call child services. I understand. June's hand shot out and grabbed Grant's sleeve. Number. Tara softened. I know, sweetheart. June hid behind Grant's coat. Grant looked at Tara. Do what you have to do. But she stays near her mother. That may not be up to me. Then bring me the person it is up to. Tara met his eyes and realized he was not threatening her. That somehow made him more difficult. I'll get the charge nurse. Thank you. Grant meant it. June whispered, "Are they taking me?" No, you don't know. Grant paused. That was true. Children had a way of finding the weak joints in adult certainty. No, he said carefully. I do not know everything, but I am here, and I am not leaving you alone. June stared at him for a long second. Then she leaned against his arm. Barely. It was the smallest weight in the world. Grant felt it like a vow. They waited near the hallway outside emergency treatment. Grant bought June hot chocolate from a vending machine. It came out too thin and too sweet in a paper cup that was too hot for her to hold. He wrapped napkins around it and placed it carefully in her gloved hands. June took one sip. Mommy says hot chocolate is for snow days. This is a snow day. She means good snow days. Grant looked toward the doors where Claire had disappeared. I see. June took another sip. Mommy makes it with milk when we have milk. Grant watched her. And when you do not. June shrugged. Water's okay if you stir it a lot. Owen turned away slightly. His jaw worked once. Grant said nothing for a moment. Then June added very softly, Sometimes Mommy says she already ate, but her stomach makes noises. Grant's hand curled slowly into a fist beside his knee. She gives me the big piece, June said. Even when I say I can take the little one. The emergency doors opened. A doctor stepped out pulling off gloves as he moved. He scanned the hallway. Family for Claire Walker. Grant stood. June stood too, spilling a little hot chocolate onto the floor. The doctor looked at Grant. You are Grant Callahan. I brought her in with her daughter. The doctor's face registered the name, then suppressed the reaction. He glanced at June and chose his words carefully. She is alive. She is critical, but responding. Severe hypoglycemia complicated by diabetic ketoacidosis. She is dehydrated and malnourished. We have her on IV fluids and insulin. We need to monitor kidney function. June looked up. Is Mommy waking up? The doctor knelt, which Grant noticed. Not right now, sweetheart. Her body is very tired. We are helping it rest and get stronger. Did I make her get sick because I asked for soup? The doctor's face changed. No, absolutely not. June did not look convinced. Grant crouched beside her. June, look at me. She did. This is not your fault. But I was hungry. Children are supposed to be hungry. Mothers are supposed to feed them. That is not a crime. That is love. June's eyes filled again. The doctor looked at Grant with something like surprise. Then he straightened. She will need at least 72 hours here, possibly longer. Whatever she needs, Grant said. There will be treatment planning, insurance review, medication access. Send the bills to me. The doctor blinked. Sir, that is not usually how this works. Grant pulled a plain white card from his wallet. No title. No company logo. Only a number. It is tonight. The doctor took the card slowly. I will have administration contact this number. Good. June tugged Grant's sleeve. Can I see Mommy? The doctor hesitated. For a minute. She will look scary because of the tubes, but they are helping her. June nodded hard. I can be brave. Grant looked down at her. You already were. Tara led June into the room. Grant followed only to the doorway. Claire lay in the hospital bed, smaller now, somehow surrounded by machines. Her face had a gray cast under the bright lights. Her hair was tangled against the pillow. An IV ran into her arm. Another line disappeared under the blanket. The monitor beside her blinked and beeped with mechanical patience. June climbed onto a chair and took her mother's hand. Mommy, I found a man. He has a big car. His pancakes are probably bad because he looks like he doesn't cook, but he helped. Tara glanced at Grant. Grant looked away. June leaned closer. You have to wake up. I'm not mad that you scared me, but you have to wake up. Grant stepped back from the doorway. He had no right to that moment. In the hallway, Owen stood with his hands folded in front of him. You all right? Grant looked at him. Owen almost laughed at himself. Stupid question. Yes. A woman in a dark winter coat approached with a file tucked under one arm. She was in her late 40s with practical shoes, tired eyes, and the expression of someone who had spent years separating truth from performance. Mr. Callahan. Grant turned. Yes. I'm Denise Harper with the Department of Children and Families. Owen shifted. Grant did not. Denise looked him over, once not impressed by the price of his clothes or the silence around him. I need to speak with you about June Walker. She is with her mother. For now, her mother is incapacitated and there is no known legal guardian present. Her mother is expected to recover. That does not change the immediate issue. Grant's voice stayed calm. What is the immediate issue? That we have a minor child with no available parent for the night. Standard procedure is temporary foster placement until the mother can resume care or a suitable relative is found. Grant looked through the glass at June, who had laid her head beside Claire's hand. Number. Denise's eyebrows rose. No, the child stays near her mother. Mr. Callahan, you are not family. I am aware. You have no legal standing. Then tell me what you need to establish temporary standing. Denise stared at him. That is not a simple process. Then begin it. Her mouth tightened. You are used to giving orders. Yes. That will not help you here. Grant almost smiled, but there was no warmth in it. I am not trying to impress you, Ms. Harper. I am trying to prevent a frightened child from being removed from the only person she has in the world while that person is lying unconscious behind glass. Denise looked toward the room. June had fallen asleep sitting upright, one hand still wrapped around Claire's fingers. Denise's expression softened for half a second, then closed again. I need your full name, address, date of birth, and consent for background review. You'll have it. I need to know why you're involving yourself. Grant was quiet. There were many answers he could give. Because the girl found me. Because her mother lives in a building my companies may have neglected. Because I have money and power and no idea what either is worth if I cannot use it here. But none of those were the deepest answer. So he gave her that. Because when I was her age, no one stayed. Denise did not speak. Owen looked at the floor. Grant's jaw tightened, as if the truth had cost him something physical. Denise closed the file. I can authorize a temporary emergency arrangement for tonight only pending review. She remains accessible for hospital visits. You provide your address. A home inspection happens within 24 hours. If anything concerns me, she is moved. Understood. And Mr. Callahan. Yes, I know your name. Grant met her eyes. I assumed. That does not make this easier. No, it makes it harder. Grant looked back through the glass at the sleeping child. Then be thorough. Denise studied him for another moment, then nodded. I intend to be. It was after 1 in the morning when June was finally allowed to leave. Claire had been moved to critical care. Tara promised to call if anything changed. Denise took Grant's information with a look that said she would verify every word twice. June could barely stand. Her fear had burned through her, and exhaustion had taken what was left. Grant lifted her without asking. This time she did not protest. She curled against his chest, one cheek pressed to his sweater still wrapped in his coat. The gloves had slipped off somewhere in the hospital room. Her hands were tucked beneath her chin like a much younger child's. At the exit, the automatic doors opened to the night. The snow had slowed. Boston looked quieter now, softer. The streetlights glowed on the wet pavement. The ambulance bay hummed with tired engines and distant voices. Owen brought the SUV around. Grant stood under the hospital awning with June asleep in his arms. For years, he had believed weight meant burden, debt, obligation, threat. But this child weighed almost nothing, and still holding her changed the shape of him. Owen opened the rear door. Penthouse. Grant looked down at June. She murmured in her sleep a broken little sound that might have been Mommy. Grant closed his eyes for one brief second. Then he opened them. Yes. He climbed into the back seat, carefully keeping June steady against him. Owen pulled away from the hospital. The city passed in bands of black, white, and gold. Grant did not look at his phone. He did not think about the meeting he had missed, the men waiting for orders, or the Empire turning without him for the first time in years. He looked at the child asleep in his arms. Somewhere across Boston, Claire Walker was fighting her way through the dark. Somewhere behind Grant's ribs, another kind of darkness had begun to loosen. When the SUV turned toward the harbor and the glass towers rose ahead, June shifted closer in her sleep, trusting him without knowing what that trust demanded. Grant held her with both arms, as the city lights climbed around them and the home he had never really lived in waited above the water. The home Grant Callahan had never really lived in waited above the water like a glass box in the sky. The private elevator opened without a sound. Grant stepped into the penthouse with June asleep against his chest, her face tucked into the hollow beneath his jaw. She smelled like cold air hospital soap, and the faint sweetness of vending machine hot chocolate. His coat hung around her like a blanket. One small hand was curled in the fabric of his sweater, holding on even in sleep. The lights came on automatically, soft white, too clean, too cold. The penthouse looked exactly as it always had. Polished concrete floors, black stone counters, tall windows showing Boston Harbor under a pale crust of snow. Furniture chosen by a designer Grant had paid and never spoken to again. There were no photographs on the walls, no books left open, no shoes by the door, no mug in the sink. Nothing out of place, nothing alive. Owen entered behind him carrying the plastic hospital bag with June's clothes inside. He looked around the room as if seeing it for the first time. "Where do you want her?" Grant did not answer right away. There was a guest room down the hall. He had bought the penthouse with 3 bedrooms because the architect said the resale value required it. No guest had ever slept there. No one had ever asked. He walked to it now. The room was perfect and useless. White sheets, gray blanket, 1 lamp, 1 chair, a closet with empty hangers lined in a row. Grant lowered June onto the bed as carefully as if she were made of blown glass. She stirred when he tried to pull his coat away. "No," she mumbled. Her eyes did not open. Grant stopped. Owen watched from the doorway. Grant left the coat around her and pulled the blanket over both. June turned onto her side, her cheek sinking into the pillow. Her lips moved. "Mommy." Grant stood there longer than he meant to. The word went through the room like a small ghost. Owen cleared his throat softly. "I can stay outside the door." Grant looked at him. "No, you sleep." Owen blinked. "I sleep." "You heard me." "That is new?" Grant gave him a look. Owen lifted both hands. "I'll be in the hall." Grant turned off the lamp but left the bathroom light on with the door cracked. He had read that somewhere on his phone in the hospital while June slept in the chair beside him. Children were afraid of unfamiliar dark. Children needed to wake and know where they were. Children needed adults who did not vanish. He stood outside the door after closing it halfway. His phone vibrated again. He looked down. 8 missed calls. 3 messages from Ray Sloan, 2 from Elliot Shaw, 1 from a harbor contact, 1 from a number that only called when something had gone wrong. Grant silenced the phone and placed it on the kitchen counter. The penthouse became quiet. Too quiet. Owen leaned against the far wall, arms crossed. "You told Denise Harper she could inspect this place tomorrow." "Yes." "She's going to look through everything." "Yes." "You have files here." "No, I have walls, windows, and bad art." Owen glanced at the large, abstract painting above the living room fireplace. "It is bad. It cost $80,000. Still bad." Grant looked at the guest room door. Owen followed his gaze. After a moment, he said, "She trusts you." Grant's face stayed still. "She is 4. That does not make it smaller." Grant looked at his hand. June's fingers had left faint wrinkles in the sleeve of his sweater. "I know." He did not sleep. At first, he sat in the living room because he wanted to hear if June woke up. Then he sat because sleep felt impossible. Then because the city outside the windows began to pale, and he realized night had passed without asking his permission. At 5:47, June screamed. Grant was on his feet before the sound finished. He moved down the hall fast, then stopped outside the room. The old version of him entered rooms like a command. But this was not a meeting. This was not a warehouse. This was not a man who owed him money. This was a terrified child in a strange bed. He stepped into the doorway and kept his hands visible. June was sitting upright, tangled in the blanket, and his coat eyes wide and wild. "Mommy," she cried. "Where's Mommy?" Grant lowered himself to one knee just inside the room. "June, it's Grant." She looked around like the walls had betrayed her. "I want Mommy." "I know. Where is she?" "At the hospital. The doctors are taking care of her." June's breathing came hard and fast. "I want to go now. We are going this morning. Now." Grant looked at the window. The sky was still dark. Visiting hours did not matter to him, but June needed food, clean clothes, and steadiness more than she needed speed. He spoke slowly. "We are going today." "I promised." Her face crumpled. "You said today. Is today now?" That stopped him. In a child's world, time was either now or too late. Grant nodded once. "Yes, today is now. We need to get you warm, fed, and dressed first. Then we go." June stared at him. "You won't leave." "Number. You won't go to work." The question landed strangely. Grant thought of the men waiting for him, the money moving the threats and favors and quiet machinery of his life. "Number." June wiped her face with the sleeve of his coat. "Do you have cereal?" Grant stood. He did not have cereal. He had coffee beans imported from Guatemala, sparkling water in glass bottles, 3 jars of olives, a wedge of cheese wrapped in paper, and a lemon that looked accused. He opened the refrigerator. June stood beside him, still half wrapped in his coat, her hair flattened on one side. She peered inside. "That's not breakfast." "No." "Do you live here?" "Yes." She looked up at him, deeply concerned. "Do you eat?" "Sometimes." "That's bad." "Mommy says people get cranky when they don't eat." Grant closed the refrigerator. "I have been informed." He called Owen. Owen answered from the hallway as his phone rang in his hand. "I am 10 feet away. I need groceries." Owen looked through the open kitchen doorway. "You need many groceries." For a child, Owen's expression shifted into a seriousness that would have been funny under different circumstances. "What does she eat?" Grant looked at June. "What do you eat?" June hugged the coat tighter. "Pancakes, cereal, bananas, noodles, chicken stars." Grant repeated it into the phone, even though Owen was staring at him. "Pancakes, cereal, bananas, noodles, chicken stars." Owen nodded once. "Understood." June tugged at the hem of Grant's sweater. "Not the cereal with the old man on it." Grant looked at Owen. "Not the cereal with the old man on it." Owen left without comment. While they waited, Grant found a clean towel and one of his smallest shirts. It still hung to June's knees. He placed her clothes from the hospital bag into the washing machine and stood in front of the controls longer than he wanted anyone to know. June watched him from the laundry room door. "You don't know how." "I know how." "You're reading the buttons." "Because the machine has many options. My mommy just turns the knob." Grant pressed start. The machine hummed. June nodded as if he had passed a test. In the bathroom, he gave her a new toothbrush from an unopened package and turned away while she washed her face. She emerged with water on the front of his shirt and toothpaste near her chin. "Do you have a comb?" Grant opened a drawer. It contained shaving cream razors and a silver case with cufflinks he never wore. "Number." June sighed with the weary disappointment of someone much older. Owen returned 40 minutes later with 8 bags of groceries and the expression of a man who had survived combat but barely survived the cereal aisle. "There were too many kinds," he said. "I bought 4. None have old men." June inspected them from her stool. "This one has a tiger." Owen nodded. He seemed reliable. "This one has marshmallows." That seemed important. Grant unpacked the bags. Milk, eggs, bananas, apples, pancake mix. Syrup, soup, crackers, noodles. Frozen chicken shaped like stars. Yogurt, strawberries, a box of crayons, coloring books. A stuffed harbor seal, children's shampoo, and a purple comb. Grant held up the comb. Owen looked away. It had sparkles. "I made a choice." June reached for the stuffed seal first. "What's his name?" Owen asked. June hugged it under her chin. "Captain Waffles." Owen nodded like a man receiving orders. "Good name." Grant attempted pancakes. The first one fused to the pan like evidence. The second came apart when he tried to flip it. The third was black on one side and pale on the other, a failure with ambition. June sat at the counter watching every move with solemn attention. "My mommy makes them round." "These are round." "No, that one looks like a boot." Owen coughed. Grant did not turn around. The fourth pancake came out close enough to food. The fifth looked better. By the sixth, Grant had found the right heat, the right timing, the precise moment when bubbles meant turn it over. He placed 3 pancakes on a plate, sliced a banana with the focus of a surgeon, and set the food in front of June. She picked up the fork with both hands. Grant waited. She took a bite. Her face gave away nothing. Then she swallowed. "They're bumpy." "Yes, but good." Grant felt a strange warmth rise through him. It was ridiculous. Embarrassing. Completely out of proportion. "Acceptable," he said. June took another bite. "Mommies are better, naturally. But you can practice." Owen turned toward the window, shoulders shaking once. Grant sat across from June with the black coffee he had forgotten to drink. Sunlight crept slowly over Boston Harbor, turning the water gray and silver. June ate every bite. She gave Captain Waffles a small piece and scolded him for not chewing. For the first time since Grant had bought the penthouse, the kitchen smelled like food. Real food. Burnt in places, sweet in others. Alive. Denise Harper arrived at 9:20. She entered with a file, a sharp eye, and no interest in being charmed. Grant let her in himself. Owen stood near the window silent. Denise looked first at June. June sat on the floor beside the coffee table drawing with the new crayons. She was still wearing Grant's shirt, her hair combed badly to one side with the sparkly purple comb. Captain Waffles sat beside her like a witness. Denise took in the room. The marble table now had syrup on one corner. A cereal box sat open on the counter. The guest bathroom had a step stool Owen had somehow found and purchased. The living room television was playing a children's cartoon with the sound low. Denise looked at Grant. "You did all this overnight?" Owen bought the seal. Owen said nothing. June looked up. "His name is Captain Waffles." Denise's mouth almost smiled. "That is a strong name. He's brave. I can see that." Denise walked through the penthouse. She checked the guest room, the bathroom, the locks, the kitchen, the empty balcony door that did not open without a code. She asked Grant questions. Direct questions. He answered all of them. No, he was not related. No, he had no children. Yes, he had legal counsel. Yes, he understood this arrangement was temporary. Yes, he understood Claire Walker's rights came first if she recovered. Denise paused at that. If she recovers. Grant's eyes moved to June. When she recovers. Denise studied him. "Careful, Mr. Callahan. Hope can make adults careless." Grant looked back at her. "So can procedure." She closed the folder slowly. June brought over her drawing. It showed 3 figures. One small, one lying in a bed. One tall and black with very large shoulders. Denise pointed to the tall figure. "Who is that?" "Mr. Grant." "Why is he so big?" June looked at Grant, then back at Denise. "Because he stood in the door." Denise's face changed. Not much. Enough. Grant looked down at the drawing and felt something in his chest pull tight. Denise handed the paper back. "I am approving the emergency arrangement through the next review. Hospital access remains open. My office receives updates. If Ms. Walker wakes and asks for her daughter June, goes to her immediately unless a doctor says otherwise." Agreed. Denise stepped closer to Grant as June returned to coloring. "She trusts you." Grant's mouth tightened. She should trust her mother. "That was not my point." Grant said nothing. Denise lowered her voice. "I know what men say about you. I know the shape of your reputation. But I also know what a frightened child looks like when she feels safe. I am not blind to either fact." Grant looked at her. "I am not asking you to be good. Because if you hurt her, I will make your life very complicated. Owen's eyebrows lifted slightly. Grant nodded. Fair. Denise left with one last glance at June. When the door closed, June called from the floor. Is she mad? Grant looked at the door. No, she sounds mad. She is careful, like you. Grant turned. The question was not simple. Not from her. Yes, he said, like me. At the hospital that afternoon, June held Claire's hand and told her about the pancakes in great detail. They were ugly, Mommy. But I ate them because Mr. Grant looked worried. Grant stood by the window pretending to read a text from Elliot. Claire did not move. Her face had more color than the night before, but she was still unconscious, still lost somewhere medicine could reach, but love could only wait beside. June placed Captain Waffles beside Claire's arm. He's watching you until I come back. A nurse came in to adjust the IV. June looked at her. Is my mommy getting better? The nurse smiled gently. She is fighting very hard. June nodded. She's good at that. Grant looked at Claire then. He had seen fighters his entire life. Men with guns. Men with money. Men with pride so large it made them stupid. Claire Walker looked fragile under hospital blankets, but the apartment had told him the truth. She had been fighting for years. Fighting landlords, bills, hunger, illness, loneliness, and the specific terror of raising a child with no net beneath her. She had fought until her own body collapsed under the terms. Grant looked away. He had spent years making sure men feared his name. Claire had spent years making sure her daughter had dinner. Only one of those things looked like strength in that room. That evening, after June fell asleep on the penthouse couch with Captain Waffles tucked beneath her chin, Grant sat at the kitchen counter with his laptop open. Owen placed a folder beside him. Property records. Grant opened it. Owen stayed silent. Grant read the first page, then the second. Then the chain of ownership, each company tucked inside another company, each signature hidden behind managers' trusts and liability shields. The East Boston building belonged to Harbor Line Residential Group. Harbor Line was owned by Beacon Harbor Holdings. Beacon Harbor Holdings was controlled by a private trust tied to Callahan Development. Grant sat very still. Owen watched him. It is yours, Owen said. Grant kept reading. The management reports were worse. Deferred maintenance, heating complaints, lock replacement delayed, mold remediation pending review, fire escape inspection marked non-urgent, tenant payment irregularities flagged, eviction recommendations submitted for Units 3, B, 4C, and 5A. 4C. Claire Walker. Grant looked at the line until the words blurred, not because of tears, because rage had a way of sharpening and distorting things at the same time. Who manages it? Local firm McCann Urban Properties. Who approved deferred repairs? Looks like regional operations. Who owns regional operations? Owen did not answer. He did not have to. Grant closed the folder. For years he had understood harm as an action. A man struck, a man ordered, a man signed, a man threatened. But this was harm by distance, harm by paperwork, harm by not looking. The broken lock on June's building was not an accident. The cold radiator was not fate. The mold in the vents was not weather. Somewhere in the chain of command, people had learned that poor tenants endured what richer people sued over, and Grant had profited because he never asked who paid the cost. June shifted on the couch and made a small sound in her sleep. Grant looked at her. The old anger in him wanted a target, a name, a body in a chair across from him. But Claire's apartment had already shown him the truth. The target was not one man. It was a machine, and his name was on the engine. He stood so abruptly the chair scraped the floor. Owen straightened. Where are you going? Grant picked up his phone. To make calls. It is after midnight. Good, they'll remember being woken. He called the head of Callahan Development first, then the property attorney, then the operations director. He spoke in a voice that made men sit up in bed and turn on lights. Repairs began in the morning. All buildings under Harbor Line received emergency inspection. All open heat complaints were to be resolved immediately. All exterior locks replaced within 24 hours. All eviction actions paused pending review. All medical hardship cases removed from automated collection. No one argued after the second sentence. When he finished, the city outside the windows was dark again. June still slept on the couch. Owen had not moved. Grant stood over the folder. Owen said, "That will cost." Grant looked at him. So did doing nothing. Owen nodded once. Grant walked to the couch and carefully lifted June. She curled into him without waking. This time he did not stiffen. His arms found the shape of holding her, as if they had been learning while he was not paying attention. He carried her down the hall to the guest room. The bathroom light was still on. The blanket was folded back. As he laid her down, June opened her eyes halfway. "Did we see Mommy?" "Yes." "Is she still sleeping?" "Yes." June blinked slowly. "Are you still here?" Grant crouched beside the bed. "Yes." "Okay." She closed her eyes again. That was all. No speech, no gratitude, no fear. Just okay. Grant stayed there, one hand resting on the edge of the mattress until her breathing evened out. Then he stood and went back to the living room where the folder waited on the counter like a confession. At dawn, the first calls came in from East Boston. Maintenance trucks had arrived. Locks were being replaced. Heat crews were entering buildings. Tenants were confused, suspicious, and cold enough not to ask too many questions. Grant listened to the updates without satisfaction. It was not enough. It could not be enough. But for the first time in many years, he was not using power to make silence. He was using it to answer a small voice in the snow. At the hospital, just after sunrise, Claire Walker's fingers twitched against the white sheet. June was not there to see it. Grant was. He had come early, leaving Owen at the penthouse while June slept. He stood near the window in Claire's room watching snow melt against the glass when the movement caught his eye. One finger, then another. Claire's brow tightened, as if she were trying to climb out of a dream that did not want to let her go. Grant stepped closer, but not too close. A nurse entered and checked the monitor. "Claire," she said softly, "can you hear me?" Claire's lips parted. No sound came at first. Then one word, rough, broken, filled with panic before she had even opened her eyes. "June." Grant looked at her hand on the sheet. Then he looked toward the door, toward the sleeping child across the city, toward the life that had entered his home and ruined its perfect silence. His voice was quiet. "She's safe." Grant said the words softly, but Claire Walker heard them as if they had been spoken through water. Her eyes opened halfway. The hospital room came back to her in pieces. White ceiling, pale curtain, a machine beeping somewhere near her shoulder, cold tape on the back of her hand, the dry taste of medicine in her mouth, a light too bright above her, a man standing near the foot of the bed. Not a doctor, not a nurse, a stranger in a black sweater with tired eyes and a stillness that did not belong in hospitals. Claire tried to move. Pain answered first. Her body felt hollowed out, as if someone had taken all the strength from her bones and left only the shape of her behind. "June," she whispered. The nurse leaned over her. "Claire, you're at Massachusetts General. You were brought in 2 nights ago. You were very sick, but you're stable now." Claire heard the words, but they passed around the only thing that mattered. "My daughter." "She's safe," the nurse said again. Claire's eyes moved back to the man. "Where?" Grant stepped closer slowly enough not to startle her. "With my security at my residence." She ate breakfast. "She saw you yesterday. She left you a stuffed seal named Captain Waffles." Claire stared at him. The name was so exactly June that it hurt. Her lips trembled, but her eyes sharpened. "Who are you?" "Grant Callahan." The room seemed to contract around that name. Claire knew it. Not from newspapers. Men like him kept their names out of the places decent people looked. She knew it from growing up in neighborhoods where adults stopped talking when children walked in. She knew it from whispers near corner stores from a landlord who once bragged about knowing a Callahan man from old men outside bars who lowered their voices when black cars passed. Grant Callahan. Harbor money. Union money. South Boston blood. A man who did not need to threaten people because the threat had already arrived before him. Claire tried to sit up again. The machine protested. The nurse reached for her shoulder. "Claire, please." Claire pushed weakly against her hand. "You gave my daughter to him." Grant did not flinch. "She came to me." "That is not an answer." "No," he said. "It is the truth." Claire's breathing grew uneven. "Where is she?" "I can bring her." "Now." The nurse glanced at the monitor. "You need to stay calm." Claire turned her head, and for the first time her voice found some strength. "I will be calm when I see my child." Grant nodded once. "I'll get her." He left before the nurse could tell him visiting rules or medical limitations. In the hallway, Owen was waiting near the vending machine's phone in hand. "She awake?" "Yes." "And she knows my name." Owen's face told him that was enough. Grant called the penthouse. June answered on the third ring with Owen's backup phone, breathing hard as if she had run across the room to grab it. "Mr. Grant, your mother is awake." The line went silent. Then June made a sound too small to be a word. Grant closed his eyes for a second. "We're coming to get you." "Can I wear my red coat?" "Yes." "And bring Captain Waffles?" "Yes." "And the picture?" "Yes." June whispered. She woke up. Grant looked through the glass wall into Claire's room. Claire was watching him from the bed, pale and furious and alive. "Yes," he said. She woke up. By the time Grant returned with June, the child was nearly shaking apart from excitement and fear. She had insisted on carrying the drawing herself. Captain Waffles was tucked under one arm. Her red coat was zipped crookedly over a clean sweater Owen had bought because he claimed the store employee said it was suitable for emotionally significant hospital visits. Grant did not ask what that meant. June saw the room number and ran. "Mommy." Claire opened her arms before June reached the bed. The child climbed up awkwardly, careful of the tubes, only because the nurse caught her elbow. Then she collapsed against Claire's chest with a sob that sounded too large for her body. Claire held her as if the world were trying to take her again. "Oh, baby. Oh, my baby." June buried her face in her mother's neck. I found help, Mommy. I did. I know you did. I was so scared." Claire's face broke. I'm so sorry." Grant stood in the doorway and did not enter. He watched for one breath, then looked away. Some things were not meant to be witnessed too closely. Reunion was one of them. Grief was another. A mother apologizing to her child for almost dying was both. Owen stood behind him in the hall. "You all right?" Grant looked at him. Owen raised one hand. "I know, stupid question." Inside the room, June pulled back and grabbed Claire's face with both hands. "Don't sleep like that again." Claire tried to smile, but it failed. "I'll try not to." "No, promise." Claire closed her eyes. The word had weight. Grant knew that. Claire knew it too. "I promise I will do everything I can to stay healthy." June studied her. "That is a long promise. It is the honest kind." June seemed to accept that. Then she looked over her shoulder. "Mr. Grant is here." Claire's eyes moved to the doorway. Grant stepped in only because June had made him part of the room. Claire looked smaller in the bed, but not weaker. Her body had failed her. Her will had not. "Mr. Callahan," she said. "Claire." The use of her first name made her eyes narrow. "Mrs. Walker." "That's not my name anymore." Grant absorbed the correction. "Claire." June sat upright against her mother's side. He made pancakes. Claire blinked. He did what? They were bad first. Then they were bumpy. Then they were okay. Grant looked at the wall. Claire almost smiled, almost. "Did he burn the pan?" June nodded solemnly. "A lot." The nurse adjusted the IV and tried not to laugh. Claire looked at Grant again. "Thank you for feeding her. You do not have to thank me for breakfast. I decide what I thank people for." There it was. Pride, exhaustion, suspicion. The fierce instinct of a woman who had learned that kindness usually came with hooks. Grant inclined his head. "Fair." Claire watched him for a moment. "Why did you take her?" "Child Services wanted temporary placement. And you thought you were better. Number. Then why?" Grant looked at June, who was smoothing Captain Waffles against the blanket beside Claire's arm, because she was afraid. Claire gave a sharp little laugh with no humor in it. A lot of children are afraid, Mr. Callahan. I know. Do you? He met her eyes. Yes. Something in his voice made her pause. The room settled around them, filled with machine noise and June's quiet sniffles. Claire looked down at her daughter. What did I miss? June's words came fast. The ambulance was loud, and I got hot chocolate, and Mr. Grant has a house in the sky but no cereal, and Owen bought Captain Waffles, and there's a lady named Denise who sounds mad, but is actually careful, and I left you a picture and I told you to wake up. Claire touched June's hair. I heard you. June's eyes widened. You did. I think part of me did. June pressed closer, satisfied by magic. Grant stayed near the doorway. Claire noticed. You don't come in unless invited. Not always. But here. Here, yes. Claire studied him as if he were a chart with missing data. You're not what I expected. Grant's mouth barely moved. You are exactly what I expected. Claire's face cooled. And what is that? A mother who is angry because she was helpless for 2 days. Her eyes flashed. I am not helpless. No. Grant's voice remained calm. That is why being unable to protect your daughter hurt more than the illness. Claire stared at him. For a second, the room had no sound but the monitor. Then Claire looked away. I need to know what happened. The doctor came later and explained with careful patience. Severe diabetic crisis. Dangerous blood sugar swings. Dehydration. Malnutrition. Kidney stress. Insulin interruption. Missed meals. Too much work. Not enough rest, not enough medicine, not enough body left to keep paying the debt. Claire listened without looking at Grant. Her hand stayed in June's hair. When the doctor mentioned medication access, her fingers tightened. How long am I here? At least another few days, the doctor said. I have shifts. You are not returning to work this week. Claire gave him a look that had probably sent weaker men backward. I cannot miss work. You almost died. I heard you. The doctor paused. Grant watched Claire do the math in her head. Rent, groceries, medicine, child care, lost wages, hospital bill. Every number was a hand around her throat. The bill, she said. Handled, Grant said. Claire turned to him slowly. No. Grant said nothing. No, she repeated. You do not pay for me. I already told administration to send it to me. Her face changed from pale to flushed. You had no right. You were unconscious. That does not make me yours to manage. Grant accepted the words because they were true. No, it does not. Then undo it. I can't. You can do whatever men like you do. Not this. Claire's eyes shone with anger, and beneath it, something more dangerous. Shame. Grant hated seeing it there. This is not charity, he said. She laughed once. Of course it is. No. Charity is when people give what they can spare and walk away feeling clean. Her mouth closed. Grant continued. This is restitution. Claire stared at him. For what? Grant did not answer in front of June. Claire saw that too. She looked down at her daughter. June, can you go with Nurse Tara for a minute and pick me out some ice chips? June frowned. I don't want to leave. I know, just to the desk and back. June looked at Grant. He said, I'll stand right here. June considered the geography of safety. Mother in bed. Grant by door. Nurse outside. Acceptable. Captain Waffles stays with Mommy. Agreed, Claire said. When June left with Tara, Claire's face changed. The softness vanished. Talk. Grant closed the door halfway, not fully. I reviewed the building. What building? Your apartment. Claire's expression hardened. What about it? The ownership chain connects to one of my companies. Silence. Claire looked at him as if he had struck her. You own my building. Through several layers. That means yes. Yes. Her breathing changed. Grant took one step closer, then stopped when her eyes warned him not to. The broken lock. The heat complaints, the fire escape, the mold remediation. They were all documented. Claire's voice dropped. Documented. Yes. And ignored. Yes. She looked towards the window. Her jaw tightened hard enough to hurt. For months I called about the heat. Grant said nothing. June slept in 2 sweaters. I put towels under the window. I boiled water on the stove to make the room warm before bed. His face stayed still, but something inside it seemed to darken. Claire turned back. I called about the lock after a man got into the lobby and slept under the stairs. The property manager said they would put in a request. I know. You know now. Yes, you did not know then because people like me are numbers to people like you. Grant did not defend himself. That seemed to anger her more. Say something. You're right. Claire blinked. The answer gave her nowhere to put the next blow. You don't get to be noble because you admit it. I know. You don't get to buy your way out of what that building did to us. I know. Her eyes filled, but she refused the tears. I almost died on a floor you owned. Grant's throat moved once. Yes. And my daughter had to walk through snow because the phone was dead and I was too sick to wake up. Yes. Do you understand what that did to her? His voice changed then. It became rougher, lower. Yes. Claire heard something in it and went still. Grant looked toward the half-open door where June's voice floated faintly from the nurse's station. When I was 7, my mother collapsed in our kitchen. I was alone with her. I called her name until I couldn't speak. She died before anyone who mattered arrived. Claire's anger did not disappear, but it held its breath. My father told me to kill the feeling, so I did. He looked back at her. June said the same words I said. Different city, different floor. Same fear. I could not leave her there. Claire watched him for a long moment. That explains why you helped? Yes. It does not explain why I should trust you. No. Good. We agree on something. June returned with ice chips and a pink spoon she had somehow convinced Tara to give her. Claire wiped her face quickly before June saw the tears threatening. For the next 2 days, trust remained a locked door. Grant came with June every morning. He stood when Claire asked him to stand. He left when she asked him to leave. He answered questions directly and offered no false comfort. He handled hospital administration without making Claire feel small, though sometimes she caught him paying attention to forms before she saw them solving problems before they reached her bed. That irritated her. It also let her breathe. June began to relax between them. She drew pictures on the hospital tray. She told Claire about the penthouse and Owen's terrible singing in the car. Owen denied singing. June said humming counted. Owen accepted the correction with dignity. On the 3rd day, Claire was strong enough to sit in a chair by the window. Grant arrived with coffee for himself and tea for her. Claire looked at the cup. How did you know? You asked Nurse Tara for tea yesterday and said the hospital kind tasted like wet cardboard. Claire took the cup. That is invasive listening. It is still listening. She almost smiled. Careful, Mr. Callahan. Grant. She looked at him over the rim. Careful, Grant. June sat on the floor coloring Captain Waffles a paper hat. Claire watched her daughter, then said quietly, "What happens when I leave here?" Grant had prepared for this question. He handed her a folder. Claire stared at it. I hate folders, I assumed. Yet here we are. There is an apartment in Cambridge. 2 bedrooms. Clean heat. Working locks. Close to the clinic listed in the second document. Her eyes moved sharply to him. What clinic? A community health clinic in Somerville needs nurses. Predictable hours. Benefits. Insurance that covers your insulin and monitoring supplies. You would interview formally. The offer is not automatic. Claire opened the folder despite herself. She read the lease first, then the clinic letter, then the payment terms. Her face revealed very little, but her fingers tightened on the pages. This rent is too low. It is income-based, because you made it that way. Yes, so it is charity. No, she looked up. Do not play word games with me. Grant sat across from her. The building that failed you made me money. The least I can do is make sure the next roof over your daughter's head does not. The least you can do is not the same as the right thing. Number. Are there strings? No. Men like you always have strings. Grant held her gaze. Then cut them if you find them. Claire studied him. Why not just fix the old apartment? I am. The whole building and others. Her eyes narrowed. You are. Yes, because of me. Because of June. That answer was honest enough to hurt. Claire looked at her daughter. June was now explaining to Captain Waffles that hats were important because heads get lonely. Claire looked back at Grant. If I accept this, it is for her. I know. Not because I owe you. You don't. Not because you saved me. June saved you. And if you ever make me feel bought even once I walk. Grant nodded. Yes, even if it hurts June. His jaw tightened, but he nodded again. Yes. Claire leaned back, exhausted by the conversation. You're very calm for a man being threatened by a woman in a hospital gown. Grant's eyes lowered briefly, almost a smile. You are not the least dangerous person I have met this week. This time Claire did smile. Small, brief, real. Grant felt it more than he should have. Claire was discharged on a Friday afternoon under a sky the color of dirty wool. June bounced beside her wheelchair carrying flowers from Tara and Captain Waffles under one arm. Owen waited by the SUV. Grant stood near the rear door, coat buttoned, face unreadable. Claire stopped when she saw him. I can walk. The nurse said hospital policy. Claire muttered something under her breath that made Tara laugh. At the curb, Claire looked toward the city, then at Grant. Cambridge, if you choose. She held the folder against her chest. I choose heat and locks. Do not mistake that for choosing you. Grant opened the door. I won't. The apartment was on the second floor of an old brick house near a quiet street with bare trees and narrow sidewalks. It was not grand. Claire would have hated grand. It had hardwood floors, wide windows, a kitchen with yellow afternoon light, and 2 bedrooms separated by a short hall. June ran inside and gasped. Mommy, there's a bathtub. Claire stood in the kitchen, one hand on the counter. The place was warm. That was what broke her. Not the size, not the clean tile, not the full refrigerator. Warmth. She covered her mouth with one hand, turning away from June. Grant saw and looked toward the window instead. June ran from room to room, giving Captain Waffles a tour. Claire's voice came very quietly. I don't know how to stand in a place that isn't falling apart. Grant did not move. Take your time. She laughed under her breath, but it shook. You say that like, time is something people have. Tonight you do. Claire turned back. Her eyes were wet but fierce. You keep saying the right thing. It makes me suspicious. I say plenty of wrong things. Name one. Grant thought. I told June my pancakes were round. Claire blinked. Then she laughed. Not long, not fully, but enough that June came running back. Mommy laughed. I did not. You did. Grant looked at Claire. Claire looked away, but the corner of her mouth stayed soft. The refrigerator was stocked. Too stocked. Claire opened it and stared. Grant. June helped choose. There are 12 yogurts. She was persuasive. They are all strawberry. She was very persuasive. Claire closed the fridge slowly. She looked tired enough to fall asleep standing up, but there was color in her face now. Anger had given way to something more fragile. Relief, maybe. Fear of relief. June tugged Grant's sleeve. Stay for dinner. Claire opened her mouth to correct her, then stopped. Grant waited. He would not accept the child's invitation without the mother's. Claire saw that too. She leaned against the counter. It is just spaghetti. Grant said I like spaghetti. You look like you eat steak in rooms with no windows. I also like spaghetti. June clapped once. Then stay. Dinner was simple. Boxed pasta, jarred sauce, garlic bread. Claire found in the freezer and pretended not to notice someone had bought. June sat on a cushion because the chairs were too low for her. Grant sat across from Claire at a kitchen table that had scratches in the wood and one leg slightly shorter than the others. It was the best meal he had eaten in years, not because of the food, because June talked through most of it, because Claire corrected her gently, because the radiator clicked, because the window fogged at the edges, because no one at the table wanted anything from him except to pass the cheese. After dinner, June demanded a story. Not from a book, make one. Grant looked at Claire. She lifted her tea. You survived Boston politics. Surely you can survive a bedtime story. June climbed onto the couch and patted the spot beside her. It needs a sea monster. Grant sat carefully, and a Princess June added, of course, and someone grumpy. Claire looked into her tea. Interesting requirement. Grant began slowly. Once there was a sea monster who lived under Boston Harbor. June leaned against his arm. He was very big. Very big. Did he eat boats? No, he scared them away. Why? Grant looked at the dark window where their reflections hovered together. Because a long time ago, someone he loved disappeared. After that, he thought if everyone stayed away, nothing could hurt him. June was quiet. Claire was too. One night, Grant continued a little princess rowed out in a tiny boat. Everyone told her not to go near the monster. They said he had sharp teeth and colder eyes than the sea. But the princess knocked on the water anyway. June whispered, "What did she say?" Grant looked down at her. "She said, 'I am scared, but I need help.'" Claire's fingers tightened around her cup. The monster came up from the dark. He tried to roar. He tried to make the waves rise, but the princess only looked at him and said, "You are not as scary as you think." June's eyelids grew heavy, and then the monster did something he had never done before. What? He listened. June fell asleep before the ending. Grant sat very still with her head against his arm. Claire stood in the kitchen doorway watching him with an expression he could not read. After a while, she crossed the room and lifted June carefully. Grant helped only when Claire allowed it. They tucked June into her new bed. Captain Waffles went under one arm. The nightlight glowed soft gold near the door. In the hallway, Claire leaned against the wall. "She trusts you." Grant nodded. "I know. She trusts fast." "No, she chooses carefully. She chose under pressure." Claire looked at him. "That sounds like something you understand." "Yes." The apartment was quiet around them. At the front door, Grant put on his coat. Claire stood a few feet away, arms folded around herself. "I still don't trust you," she said. "You shouldn't yet. But I believe you care about her." Grant's hand paused on the door handle. "I do." The words were plain. No polish, no performance. Claire looked down, then back up. "That scares me. It scares me too." For the first time, neither of them tried to soften the truth. Grant opened the door. Cold air slipped in from the hallway. Claire's voice stopped him before he stepped out. "Grant." He turned. "Thank you for not pretending this is simple." He held her gaze. "Good night, Claire." She closed the door after him and stood with her palm against the wood for a long time. On the other side, Grant remained in the hallway listening to the lock turn. It was a good lock. New. Strong. For tonight, that was enough. The lock clicked behind Grant, and for the first time in years he was glad to hear a door close between himself and the people inside. Not because he wanted distance, because the lock worked. He stood in the narrow hallway outside Claire Walker's new apartment and listened to the quiet on the other side. June was asleep in a room with warm air and a yellow nightlight. Claire was inside with medicine and the cabinet food in the refrigerator and windows that did not breathe cold into the corners. It should have been a small thing. A working lock, heat, groceries, a clean bed. But Grant had spent enough time in the shadows of powerful men to know that safety was never small to people who had lived without it. Owen waited by the stairs, one shoulder against the wall. "You staying out here all night?" Grant looked at the door for another second. "Number. You thought about it?" "Yes." Owen nodded, as if that answer made sense. They walked down to the SUV without another word. Snow had stopped falling, but the sidewalks still shone under the streetlights. Boston looked clean for the moment, which was a lie cities told after storms. Grant got into the back seat and looked up at Claire's window. The curtain moved once. She was watching. He did not wave. She would have hated that. He simply waited until the curtain fell back into place, then said, "Drive." The first week settled uneasily. Claire did not invite him over every day. She was too proud for that, and he was too careful to assume. But June had no such restraint. She called him from Claire's phone with questions that treated him less like a dangerous man and more like a strangely tall household tool. "Mr. Grant, do you know how to fix a lamp?" Yes. Do you know how to make noodles? Yes. Do you know why Captain Waffles looks sad? Number. He misses you. Grant stared out the window of his office where men in suits were waiting for him to approve a waterfront acquisition. I see. So you should come for dinner. Did your mother tell you to ask? No. Mommy said not to bother you. Owen, standing near the door, looked down to hide his face. Grant said, "You are not bothering me." June whispered away from the phone badly. He said, "I'm not bothering him." Claire's voice came faintly in the background. "June Walker, did you call him after I said not to?" June returned to the phone. "I have to go." The line went dead. Grant looked at the dark screen. Owen cleared his throat. "You have a meeting." Grant put the phone in his pocket. "Move it." Owen's eyebrows rose. "All of it." Grant walked past him. "Yes." That evening, he arrived with a repaired lamp, 2 bags of groceries, and no explanation. Claire opened the door wearing jeans, a soft green sweater, and an expression that told him she had prepared an argument and had no intention of wasting it. "She called you." "She did. I told her not to. I assumed. You cannot keep rearranging your life because my daughter likes you." Grant looked over her shoulder. June stood in the hallway in socks holding Captain Waffles by one flipper, watching with bright hope. "I did not rearrange my life." Claire folded her arms. "You canceled a meeting." Grant paused. June whispered, "How did she know?" Claire did not look away from him. "I was a nurse in an emergency ward for 6 years. Men like you do not show up at 6 with groceries unless something else got moved." Grant glanced at the bags in his hand. She wanted noodles. Claire stared at him, trying to stay angry. June stepped closer. "And the lamp is broken." Grant lifted the lamp slightly. "Was broken." Claire let out a breath through her nose. "You are impossible." "No," he said, "just punctual." That almost got him a smile. Almost. Dinner became Tuesday, then Thursday, then Sunday breakfast, because June declared that pancakes required practice, and Grant's progress needed supervision. Claire made coffee. Grant made pancakes. June graded them with the seriousness of a judge. "This one is good." Grant placed it on her plate. "This one looks like a cloud that got stepped on." He put that one on his own plate. Claire leaned against the counter, watching him without meaning to. He no longer looked lost in her kitchen. He knew which cabinet held the plates. He knew June liked her syrup on the side. He knew Claire took her coffee with too much cream and no apology. He learned quietly. That was what unsettled her. Derek had learned loudly. He used to announce every small kindness until it became a debt. If he cooked, she heard about it for a week. If he bought flowers, he expected admiration. If he held Lily as a baby, he made sure every woman in the room saw him doing it. Grant did things and moved on. He fixed the loose cabinet handle without saying a word. He noticed the old couch made her back ache, and 3 days later a nearly identical one arrived with better support. When she confronted him, he looked almost confused. "The other one hurt you. That does not mean you replace my furniture. It was not structural to your identity. It was my couch. It was a punishment device with cushions." June bounced on the new one. "This one is better, Mommy." Claire pointed at Grant. "You are creating a witness problem." Grant looked at June. June gave him a thumbs up. Claire tried not to laugh and failed. The laugh changed the room. Grant heard it and went still, not visibly enough for June to notice, but enough for Claire to see. He looked at her laugh the way some men looked at sunlight after years underground. She stopped laughing first, then looked away. After that, the silences between them changed. Not easier, warmer. There were still things neither of them said. Grant never spoke about where he went after dinner when his phone buzzed and his face went flat. Claire never asked too much in front of June. She had grown up with enough men who lived around shadows to know that questions could become doors. But she also knew silence could become rot. One night after June fell asleep on the couch during a movie, Claire carried her to bed. Grant gathered the empty plates and took them to the sink. When she returned, she found him washing dishes. The sight stopped her in the doorway. Grant Callahan, sleeves rolled to his forearms, rinsing tomato sauce from a child's plastic plate. You do dishes. He looked over his shoulder. Badly. No, just unexpectedly. I know how water works. She stepped closer and took the towel. That pan needs to soak. I was aware. You were scrubbing it like it owed you money. It looked guilty. Claire shook her head, but she was smiling. They stood side by side at the sink. Their shoulders did not touch, but the space between them felt aware of itself. Outside, snow tapped against the kitchen window. Claire's smile faded slowly. June had another nightmare last night. Grant turned off the faucet. Claire folded the towel, then unfolded it. She woke up crying. She said I was on the floor again, but this time she couldn't find you. Grant's eyes lowered. She should not have had to find me the first time. She should not have had to find anyone. No. Claire looked toward the hall. She keeps checking if I'm breathing when I sleep. I woke up this morning, and she was standing beside my bed with her hand under my nose. Grant was silent. Claire's voice thinned. I did that to her. Grant turned to her. You got sick. I rationed insulin. Because you had no money. Because I thought I could manage it. You were trying to survive. I was supposed to protect her from that kind of fear. The towel twisted in her hands. Grant reached for it gently and took it before she tore it. You cannot undo the night, he said. But you can make the nights after it different. Her eyes filled and she hated that he saw. How? We get her help. Claire laughed softly, bitterly. Therapy costs money. So does damage. She looked at him. Do not make that sound easy. It is not easy. You have a way of making impossible things look like scheduling problems. Grant accepted that. I have a way of moving obstacles. It is not the same as healing. The honesty landed between them. Claire wiped one tear before it fell. Do you know someone? Yes, of course you do. A child therapist. Not one of mine. One Tara recommended through the hospital. Claire breathed in slowly. No pressure. No. No control. No. No fixing her because you need to feel forgiven. That one hit. Grant looked at her for a long moment. No, he said. Because she deserves to stop being afraid. Claire held his gaze. Then she nodded. The therapist's office smelled like crayons, lavender, and old wooden toys. June was wary at first. She sat between Claire and Grant in the waiting room with Captain Waffles pressed to her chest. Is this a doctor? Claire smoothed her hair. A feelings doctor. June frowned. My feelings are not sick. Grant crouched in front of her. No, they are loud. June thought about that. They are loud at night. Then maybe she can help them use quieter voices. June considered this with grave suspicion. The therapist, Dr. Hannah Price, had silver hair, warm eyes, and a voice that did not rush. She did not force June to talk about the night in the snow. She let her draw. The first drawing was a little girl standing outside a dark building. The second was a woman lying on the floor. The third was a tall black shape in a doorway. Dr. Price pointed gently. Who is this? June looked at Grant. That's Mr. Grant. What is he doing? Opening the door. Grant looked down at his hands. Claire looked at him. Neither of them spoke. On the way home, June fell asleep in the back seat with Captain Waffles against her cheek. Claire sat beside Grant in the quiet of the SUV. Owen drove with the radio off. Claire watched the city pass. She drew you in black. Grant looked forward. I wear black. She drew the building in black, too. He understood the question beneath the words. I know. She is putting you close to the scary thing. Yes, but not inside it. Grant turned his head. Claire was still looking out the window. That matters, she said. He did not know what to say to that. So he said nothing. The properties became a second storm. Grant ordered inspections across every building under Harbor Line and Beacon Harbor. The reports came back ugly. Not all of them. Enough. Heat complaints buried in management software. Mold cases closed without remediation. Rent pressure on tenants who had medical hardship. Contractors paid to patch problems instead of repair them. Grant read every file. Then he called meetings that made grown men sweat. At one such meeting, 10 executives sat around a polished table on the 26th floor of Callahan Development. They had expected anger. They had prepared explanations. Weather delays, budget constraints, vendor problems, tenant misuse. The usual language people used when suffering belonged to someone else. Grant listened for 12 minutes. Then he closed the folder. Every lock gets replaced. One executive shifted. Mr. Callahan, with respect that is several hundred units. Grant looked at him. I can count. The cost will be considerable. Grant leaned back. So was the profit. No one spoke. Heat within code is not a luxury. Mold remediation is not optional. Fire escapes are not decoration. Medical hardship cases are reviewed by a person, not software. Another executive cleared his throat. This could create expectations. Grant's eyes moved to him. Yes. The man swallowed. Grant's voice lowered. People who pay rent may expect doors that lock and rooms that do not poison their children. We will endure the scandal. By the end of the meeting, 3 managers had been fired. 2 contracts had been canceled, and every property under the chain had emergency funding. Ray Sloan heard about it before lunch. He arrived at Grant's private office without being invited. Ray was 52, silver-haired, tailored, and smooth in a way that made sincerity impossible on his face. He had worked under Grant's father. He had survived every internal war by smiling at the man holding the knife and making sure it was never pointed at him for long. He poured himself a drink without asking. You're renovating East Boston. Grant did not look up from the report. I am repairing code violations. Ray smiled. Beautiful phrase, sounds clean. Grant signed a page. Say what you came to say. Ray sat across from him. Men are talking. Men talk because silence makes them nervous. They are saying you found religion. No, a woman then. Grant set down his pen. The air changed. Ray noticed. Of course he did. Men like Ray survived by noticing the smallest movements of dangerous people. That answers that, Ray said softly. Grant's face remained still. Careful. Ray lifted his glass. I am always careful. That is why I am alive. Then continue. Ray leaned forward. Your father understood something you are forgetting. Power is not money. It is fear. Tenants do not matter. Clerks do not matter. Nurses do not matter unless someone can use them against you. Grant stood. Ray looked up at him, and for the first time his smile thinned. Grant walked to the window. Below, Boston moved under gray winter light. Cars, people, smoke rising from rooftops. A city full of lives he had once treated as background. My father died alone in a room full of expensive things, Grant said. Ray's eyes sharpened. He built this. He built an empire no one wanted to come home to. Ray gave a short laugh. And what are you building, a nursery? Grant turned. A boundary. Ray's smile vanished. Meaning Claire Walker and her daughter are not subjects for discussion. Not by you. Not by anyone. Ray stood too. Everything about you is subject for discussion. That is the cost of the chair you sit in. Grant stepped closer. No, that is the cost men like you charge when they think loyalty gives them ownership. Ray's face went cold. You are making yourself easy to hurt. Grant's voice was quiet. Try. Ray held his gaze for 3 seconds too long. Then he set the glass down untouched. I hope she's worth the weather you are inviting. Grant did not answer. Ray left. The door clicked shut behind him with less comfort than Claire's had. That evening, Grant came to dinner late. Claire had left a plate for him in the refrigerator with a note on top. Eat. 1 word, written in blue pen. He stood looking at it for longer than he should have. Claire entered the kitchen and socks hair loose around her shoulders. You look like you've never seen leftovers. I've seen them. Have you eaten them? No. She opened the fridge and handed him the plate. Microwave is above the stove. Press 1, then start. Try not to intimidate it. Grant put the plate in. Claire leaned against the counter. Something happened. Yes. Work. Yes. Your kind of work or the kind with emails. His mouth tightened. Both. She studied him. You do that when you don't want to lie. Do what? Make your face empty. Grant looked at the microwave door. Claire's reflection looked back at him. There are men in my world who think caring about you makes me weak. Claire did not move. Does it? Yes. The microwave beeped. Neither of them touched it. Grant turned. It also makes me stronger. That is the part they do not understand. Claire folded her arms, but her eyes were softer now. Do you understand it? Number. That answer pulled a breath from her, almost a laugh, almost pain. At least you're honest. I am trying to be. Claire looked down. Grant. I cannot have June living inside a war. She won't. You cannot promise that. His silence told her he knew. I grew up around men who said they could keep danger outside the house, Claire said. They always thought danger listened to them because other men did. It doesn't. Grant stepped closer slowly. I know. Do you? Yes. She looked up. Then what am I supposed to do with this? Her voice broke slightly on the last word. This. Him. The warmth. The fear. The way June ran to the door when his car pulled up. The way Claire's own heart had started listening for his footsteps before her mind allowed it. Grant did not touch her. I do not know. The answer was so bare that it stripped the anger from her. I am not good at this, he said. At what? Wanting something I cannot control. Claire's eyes held his. That's what people are, Grant. I know that now. The kitchen hummed quietly around them. Claire reached past him and opened the microwave. She took out the plate and set it on the counter. Eat before it gets cold again. He looked at her. It was not forgiveness, not reassurance, not a promise. It was care disguised as instruction. For both of them, that was easier. He ate. Later, after June had been put to bed and had negotiated 2 stories, 1 sip of water, and Captain Waffles facing the door to watch for bad dreams, Claire and Grant sat on the couch by the window. Snow was falling again. Not hard. Just enough to blur the streetlights. Claire had tea. Grant had nothing. He had stopped pretending he came for food. My mother used to say snow was God telling the city to be quiet, Claire said. Grant looked toward the window. My mother said snow was the sky shaking out its sheets. Claire smiled. I like that. She liked making ugly things sound gentle. Maybe they were gentle when she said them. Grant's face softened in the reflection. She had that effect. Claire turned her cup in her hands. What was her name? Grant was quiet long enough that Claire regretted asking. Then he said Eleanor. Claire nodded. Pretty. She was. Do you talk about her? Number. Why? Grant looked at the snow. Because if I did, she would become real again. Claire's throat tightened. And if she became real, then losing her would become real too. The room was quiet. Claire set down her tea. She reached across the space between them and took his hand. Grant looked at their hands like he had never seen such a thing. Her fingers were smaller than his, but not delicate. They were a nurse's hands. Capable, steady, marked by work and survival. He closed his hand around hers with care. I'm scared, Claire said. His eyes moved to her face. Of me. Sometimes. He accepted that without flinching. Of what I feel around you, she continued. More. Grant looked down. I won't take anything from you. I know. The words surprised them both. Claire leaned her head against his shoulder. His whole body went still. Then, slowly, he let himself breathe. They sat like that while snow moved across the window and the apartment warmed around them. No kiss. No declaration. Nothing that could be turned into a promise too quickly. Only her head on his shoulder and his hand around hers, both of them learning the shape of staying. Across town, Ray Sloane sat in the back booth of a bar near the waterfront reading a file someone had brought him. Claire Walker. Age 31. Nurse. Type 1 diabetic. 1 daughter. Former husband Derek Walker. No current contact. No child support. Prior debt issues. Gambling markers in Rhode Island and New Hampshire. Ray smiled when he reached the last page. Men in love were complicated. Men with families were simple. You found the string then pulled. Derek Walker arrived 20 minutes late smelling of cigarettes and cheap cologne. He was still handsome in a careless way, though the years had made his charm look thinner around the edges. He slid into the booth across from Ray with the false confidence of a man who had mistaken survival for intelligence. "You said you knew Claire." Ray closed the file. "I know of her." "Then you know she owes me." Ray's smile deepened. "Does she?" Derek leaned back. "She was my wife." "Was. She kept my kid from me." Ray watched him. "Did she?" Derek's jaw flexed. "I had problems. Everyone does. I'm better now." "No, you're broke now. There is a difference." Derek's face hardened. Ray slid a glass toward him. "Relax, I am not judging you. I am offering you an opportunity." "What kind?" "The kind where you remember you are a father." Derek gave a short laugh. "That's supposed to pay." "It might." Ray opened the file again and placed a photograph on the table. Claire leaving the clinic with June. Grant beside them holding June's backpack, while the child skipped over a patch of ice. Derek stared. "That's Callahan." "Yes. What the hell is Claire doing with Grant Callahan?" Ray tapped one finger on the photograph. "That is what makes your daughter valuable." Derek looked up slowly. Ray let the idea settle. Outside, snow melted against the bar window. 2 days later, Claire found the envelope taped to her apartment door. No return address. Her name printed in block letters. Grant was in the kitchen with June helping her build a tower from cereal boxes because June had decided regular blocks lacked ambition. Claire opened the envelope by the door. The papers slid into her hand. Petition for custody modification. Derek Walker. Her vision narrowed. The hallway seemed to tilt just for a second. Grant saw her face change. He was across the room before June noticed anything. "Claire." She handed him the papers without speaking. He read the first page, then the second. The old Grant rose so quickly behind his eyes that Claire saw him before he spoke. Not the man who washed dishes, not the man who held June's hand in therapy. The other one. The one Boston feared. The one who solved problems in rooms without windows. Claire stepped in front of him. "No." His eyes lifted to hers. "Claire." "No." June looked over from the cereal tower. "Mommy." Claire turned just enough to keep her voice steady. "It's okay, baby. Keep building." June hesitated, then placed another box carefully on top. Claire looked back at Grant. No guns, no threats, no men showing up at Derek's door. No one disappears. No one gets scared into signing anything. Grant's jaw was tight. "He abandoned you." "Yes." "He emptied your account." "Yes." "He left June." "I know what he did." "He does not get to come back because someone pointed him at us." Claire's eyes sharpened. "Someone." Grant looked down at the papers again. Ray's fingerprints were not visible. They did not need to be. Claire saw the truth form on his face. "This is your world." Grant did not deny it. Her voice lowered. "It found us." June's cereal tower fell with a soft crash behind them. No one moved. Claire's eyes shone, but her voice stayed firm. "If you love us, you fight this clean." The word love struck both of them silent. Claire looked as if she had not meant to say it. Grant looked as if he had been hit in the chest. June picked up a cereal box. "Do we have to clean the tower?" Claire closed her eyes for 1 second, pulling herself back into the room, back into motherhood, back into the ordinary work of not falling apart in front of her child. "Yes, honey, we clean the tower." Grant folded the custody papers carefully. His hands were steady now. Too steady. Claire watched him. "Grant." He looked at her. The monster was still there. She could see it. Leashed, not gone. He looked at June, who was stacking cereal boxes again, because children believed in rebuilding without ceremony. Then he looked back at Claire. "No guns," he said. Her breath left her slowly. "No threats." He nodded. "No one disappears." Grant looked at the papers in his hand. For a long moment, all the old answers waited for him. Then he took out his phone and called Elliot Shaw. When his lawyer answered, Grant's voice was calm. Derek Walker filed for custody. A pause. "No," Grant said, looking at Claire. "We do this in court." Claire held his gaze. June's tower stood crooked between them, fragile and stubborn under the kitchen light. Elliot Shaw arrived at Claire's apartment 40 minutes after Grant called him. He wore a dark overcoat over a rumpled suit. His tie loosened his hair, still damp from snow. He looked like a man pulled out of another life and dropped into a kitchen where a little girl was rebuilding a cereal box tower beside a stuffed seal named Captain Waffles. He took in the room quickly. Claire at the table, pale but composed. Grant near the window, still holding the custody papers. June on the floor, pretending not to listen. Owen at the door, quiet as a wall. Elliot looked at Grant first. "You said court." Grant nodded. "I said court." Elliot's eyes moved to Claire, then back. "Just making sure I heard you correctly." Claire stood. "You're his lawyer." Elliot Shaw. "Are you good?" Elliot gave her a tired smile. "Good enough that dangerous men pay me to make things boring. I don't want boring. I want my daughter safe." The smile faded. "Then we want the same thing." Grant placed the papers on the table. Derek Walker abandoned them 4 years ago. Emptied her account. No support, no contact. Ray Sloan found him. Elliot looked up sharply at the name. "You're sure?" "No." Grant's face hardened. "But I know his smell." Claire looked between them. His smell. Elliot pulled out a chair and sat. "In our world, that counts as evidence that should never be said in front of a judge." Grant ignored him. "Find the paper trail." Elliot opened the custody petition and began reading. His expression changed by degrees. Mild interest. Dislike. Professional anger. He is claiming Claire is medically unstable and that June is being exposed to criminal influence. Claire's eyes went to Grant. Grant did not look away. That part, Elliot said carefully, is designed to hurt. Claire sat down slowly. "He does not even know June." "That may help us," Elliot said. "But we need to move quickly. Emergency response, medical documentation, witness statements, financial records, abandonment history." "I have everything," Claire said. Both men looked at her. She stood, went to the hallway closet, and pulled down a cracked blue folder. It was thick with old papers, envelopes, copies, notes, printed emails, records folded and refolded until their edges had gone soft. She set it on the table. "I kept it all." Elliot opened it. There were bank statements showing the account drained 3 days before Derek disappeared. Text messages unanswered. Returned mail, hospital bills, insulin receipts, daycare forms listing father as unavailable, a birth certificate, a photo of June as a newborn with Claire holding her alone in a hospital bed. Elliot looked up. "Claire, this is excellent." Claire's mouth tightened. "It did not feel excellent when I was living it." "No," he said softly. "I imagine not." June climbed into Claire's lap, then cereal tower forgotten. "Is Daddy Derek coming?" Claire's hand settled around her daughter's back. "He wants to talk to a judge." June frowned. "Why?" Claire took a breath. Grant watched her choose truth with care. "Because sometimes grown-ups make bad choices and then try to pretend they did not." June looked at Grant. "Can judges tell?" Grant crouched beside her. "Good ones can." "Are we getting a good one?" Elliot closed the folder. "I plan to insist on it." June studied him. "You look sleepy." "I am. Sleepy people can still be smart." Elliot looked at Grant. "I have built a career on that hope." June accepted this and rested her head against Claire. Grant watched Claire hold her child and felt the old instinct rage inside him. A custody petition was paper. Derek Walker was flesh. Paper took time. Flesh was easier. That thought came from the man his father had raised. It spoke in Patrick Callahan's voice, low and certain. "Protect what is yours. Make examples. Fear works faster than law." Grant looked at June's small hand resting on Claire's sweater. Then he looked at Claire. She was watching him. She saw the war in his face. "Clean," she said. One word. It held him better than any chain. Grant nodded. "Clean." For the next 2 weeks, Claire's apartment became a war room disguised as a home. Elliot came and went with files under his arm. Owen installed a better camera at the building entrance after asking Claire's permission, and then stood on a chair fixing the hallway light, because June said scary halls were bad for thinking. Denise Harper made 2 visits, 1 scheduled and 1 not. She found food in the fridge, medication organized in the cabinet, June's drawings on the walls, and Grant sitting at the kitchen table while June taught him how to draw a proper cat. "That has 6 legs," June said. Grant looked at his paper. "It is moving fast." Denise glanced at Claire. Claire's mouth twitched. The therapist wrote a letter for the court. The clinic director wrote one too. Tara from the hospital came in on her day off to sign a statement about the night Claire was admitted, about June's fear, about Grant's conduct, about the fact that Claire had never been neglectful, only sick and poor, and trapped inside a system that charged her for being alive. Claire read the letters alone in the bathroom and cried quietly with the faucet running. Grant heard the water. He did not knock. He waited in the kitchen and kept June busy with toast. One evening, after June went to bed, Claire came out holding the clinic letter. She wrote that I am one of the most capable nurses she has supervised. She is right. Claire sat across from him. I forgot that. Grant looked at her hands. Forgot what? That I was good at something besides surviving. He wanted to take her hand. He did not. Not until she offered it. After a moment, she slid her fingers across the table. He covered them gently. "You are still good," he said. Her eyes shone. "Do not say things because they sound nice. I never have. That is unfortunately true." He almost smiled. Across town, Ray Sloan continued to pull at the string. Derek called Claire twice from blocked numbers. She did not answer. He left one message, voice sweet and rotten with old charm. "Claire, come on. We were family once. I just want to see my little girl. You got yourself mixed up with a bad man, and now everyone's acting like I'm the problem." Claire listened to it once. Grant stood nearby, so still the room seemed to brace around him. Derek continued. "I know about the apartment. I know about the hospital. A judge won't like that. A mother passing out while her kid runs around the city at night. That looks bad, sweetheart." Claire deleted the message. Grant's voice was flat. "Elliot needs that." Claire looked at the phone. "I know." Her thumb shook as she recovered the recording and sent it. Grant saw the tremor and stepped closer. Claire held up one hand. "Do not touch me right now." He stopped. She breathed hard through her nose, fighting panic, rage, and memory all at once. "He used to do that," she said. "Make his voice soft when he wanted to make me feel stupid." Grant's jaw tightened. "He is not here." "No," Claire said. "But my body does not know that yet." He understood that better than she knew. So he stood with her in the kitchen a few feet away and let his presence be steady without becoming a cage. The next morning, Owen found the apartment door open. Not broken, open. Claire had just come back from taking June to school. Grant was on his way up the stairs when Owen called his name from the hallway. The door stood an inch ajar. Owen's gun was already in his hand, low against his thigh. Grant moved past Claire before she could step forward. "Stay behind me." For once, she did not argue. The apartment looked untouched at first. No drawers open, no broken glass, no missing purse, no overturned furniture. Then Claire saw the refrigerator. June's drawing had been removed from its magnet and placed on the kitchen table. 3 figures in snow, a rainbow above them. On the back, written in black marker, were 5 words. "Family makes men careless." Claire went white. Grant picked up the paper. The old monster inside him did not roar. It smiled. That frightened him more. Owen checked the rooms and returned. Clear. Claire crossed the kitchen and took the drawing from Grant's hand. Her fingers did not shake now. "Ray." Grant nodded. "Yes. What are you going to do?" He looked at the words on the paper. The answer rose in him, familiar and fast. "Find him, break him, end it." Claire's voice cut through it. "Grant." He looked at her. She was afraid. Not of Ray in that moment, of him. That hurt more than the threat. He took out his phone and called Elliot. Ray entered Claire's apartment or sent someone who did. Elliot's voice sharpened through the speaker. "Tell me you are calling police." Grant looked at Claire. "I am calling you first." Grant. "And then police." Claire exhaled. Grant continued. I want every financial record we have on Ray, every side account, every shell company, every payment he thought I did not see. Send what is clean to the detectives. Send what is federal to the bureau contact. Elliot went quiet. You are putting Ray in the system. Yes, you know what he knows about you. Grant looked at the drawing in Claire's hand. Yes. Elliot lowered his voice. That door opens both ways. Grant's eyes did not move. Then I stand in it. The police came. Claire gave a statement. Owen handed over footage from the building entrance. It showed a man in a hooded coat entering with a copied key. His face was obscured, but the timing was clear. Grant did not speak over Claire. He did not answer for her. He stood near the window and let her tell it. That mattered to Denise when she arrived later. It mattered to Claire too, though she said nothing. The custody hearing came on a gray morning with dirty snow piled along the courthouse steps. Claire wore a navy dress and the coat Grant had bought her only after June told him Mommy's old one had a hole in the pocket. And Claire agreed because it was 30 degrees and pride did not warm hands. Her hair was pulled back. Her face was pale but clear. June stayed with Tara from the hospital, who had arrived with coloring books and the grim determination of a woman prepared to fight any adult who upset her temporary charge. Grant stood beside Claire outside the courtroom. You do not have to come in, she said. Yes, I do. No, you want to. He looked at her. Yes? She studied him, then nodded. Sit behind me. Do not glare at anyone. I do not glare. Claire gave him a look. Owen, standing nearby, murmured, You do. Grant ignored him. Inside the courtroom, Derek Walker sat with a lawyer who looked too expensive for a man with no steady job. Derek turned when Claire entered. He smiled like they were meeting for coffee. Claire's fingers curled once. Grant stayed one step behind her. Derek's eyes moved to him. The smile flickered. Good, Grant thought. Then he let the thought pass. Court was slower than fear. Elliot made it slower still. He built the case piece by piece. Derek's abandonment, the emptied account, the years without support, the blocked numbers, the gambling records, the sudden custody filing only after Claire became connected to Grant, the threatening voicemail, the apartment intrusion, the link to Ray Sloan through phone records and a bar camera Ray had forgotten existed. Derek's lawyer tried to paint Claire as unstable. Claire sat very still. When her name was called, she walked to the witness stand without looking back. Grant's hands folded in his lap. Elliot questioned her gently at first. Her work history, her diagnosis, her treatment plan, her new insurance, her therapy for June, her current home. Then Derek's lawyer stood. Ms. Walker, is it true that your daughter left your apartment alone at night because you were unconscious? Claire's face tightened. Yes. And is it true that you were unconscious because you failed to manage your medical condition? Elliot stood. Objection. The judge raised one hand. Rephrase. Derek's lawyer turned slightly. Ms. Walker, did you knowingly ration insulin? Claire's throat moved. Yes, despite being the sole caregiver of a minor child. Yes. The lawyer let the silence sit. Grant's eyes went cold. Claire looked at the judge, not the lawyer. I rationed insulin because I had $67 until payday. My daughter needed food. The heat bill was overdue. The pharmacy would not release a full refill without payment. I made the wrong choice because every choice in front of me was wrong. The courtroom went quiet. She continued, voice steadier now. I did not stop loving my daughter because I was poor. I did not stop being her mother because my body failed. I fed her when I did not eat. I kept her clean. I read to her every night. I worked until I broke because I was trying to keep her out of rooms like this where strangers discuss her like a problem to be assigned. Grant looked at the floor. Claire's voice softened, but it carried. June should never have had to walk into the snow for help. I will live with that for the rest of my life. But she did not walk because I did not love her. She walked because I had no one else. That is different. The judge watched her closely. Derek shifted in his chair. Claire looked at him then. Her father had 4 years to be someone else. He chose not to. Derek's smile was gone. By the time Elliot finished with the records, there was little left of Derek's claim. His debts came out. His disappearance, his lack of contact, his coordination with Ray. His text to an unknown number saying, "If Callahan pays, I walk." The judge read it twice, then looked at Derek. Derek did not look handsome anymore. He looked small. The ruling did not come with drama. Real decisions rarely did. Full custody remained with Claire. Derek received no unsupervised visitation. Any future petition required compliance with support orders, background review, and therapeutic recommendations. The court noted credible concerns about harassment and improper motive. Claire did not move when the judge finished. Elliot touched her shoulder lightly. "It's done." Her breath left her in one broken sound. Grant stood behind her but did not touch her until she turned. Then she walked into him. He held her in the aisle of the courtroom while lawyers packed papers and strangers pretended not to watch. Outside, June ran into Claire's arms. Did the judge tell? Claire knelt and held her tight. "Yes." "Can Daddy Derek take me?" "Number." June looked at Grant. "Did you glare?" Claire laughed through tears. Grant crouched. "I tried not to." Owen said. "He failed twice." June nodded solemnly. "That's okay." She threw her arms around Grant's neck. He closed his eyes and held her. Across the city, Ray Sloane's world began folding in on itself. The first warrant landed on a shell office near the harbor. The second touched a private account he had used for side deals. Men who had smiled at him for years stopped answering calls. Contractors turned over records. A bookkeeper Ray had mistreated gave Elliot more than anyone expected. Federal agents walked through 2 warehouses with boxes and calm faces. Ray called Grant 17 times. Grant did not answer. On the 18th call, he did. Ray's voice was smooth but thinner now. "You gave them my records. You kept records. You sanctimonious son of a bitch." Grant stood alone in his office looking out over the harbor. "You threatened a child. I moved a picture. You entered their home." Ray laughed sharp and ugly. "And there he is. The family man. Your father would spit on you." Grant watched a gull cut across the gray sky. "My father taught me fear was the only thing that lasts." He was right. "No," Grant said. "He was lonely." Ray went silent. Grant continued. "I mistook that for strength for a long time." Ray's voice dropped. "You think the law saves you? You think clean hands make you safe? No. Then what do you think?" Grant looked at his reflection in the glass. Dark suit, winter eyes. A man still capable of terrible things choosing the harder restraint. "I think you should hire a lawyer." Ray hung up. 2 nights later, Grant met him at an old warehouse by the water because Ray asked for one conversation before the walls closed. Owen hated it. Elliot called him several names and threatened to file an objection against stupidity itself. Grant went anyway. Not alone. Never that careless. Owen waited outside with men Grant trusted and police close enough to matter. Inside, the warehouse smelled of salt rust and old wood. Ray stood near the center under a broken light coat, open hands visible. "You brought witnesses," Ray said. "Yes." "Afraid?" "Yes." Ray smiled. "For yourself." Grant walked closer. "Number." The smile died. Ray studied him. "You really do love them." Grant said nothing. Ray shook his head. "I remember when you were useful. Cold, like Patrick. Smarter, maybe, but cold. Then some kid with wet boots says, 'Please,' and suddenly you are tearing down your own house." Grant's face remained calm. It was already rotten. Ray stepped closer. "You think Claire Walker wants a man like you? She wants the heat, the apartment, the rescue. Give it time. She'll look at your hands and remember what they've done." Grant felt the words land. Not as a surprise, as a fear already living in him. "She might," he said. Ray blinked. Grant continued. "But that is hers to decide, not yours." Ray's jaw flexed. "You were never built for softness." Number. Grant looked around the empty warehouse. I was built for rooms like this. Ray reached into his coat. Owen came in fast from the side gun drawn. Hand out, Owen said. Ray froze. Grant did not move. For one long second, the old world waited. A twitch, a shot, a body, an ending everyone understood. Ray slowly pulled his hand out empty, then smiled. Still got you to flinch. Grant looked at Owen, then back at Ray. No, he said. You got me to choose. Blue lights moved across the high windows. Ray turned his head toward the sound. His face changed. You called them. Yes. You handed your own blood to police. You are not my blood. Ray stared at him with pure hatred. And what are they, the nurse and the kid? Grant thought of June's drawing on the refrigerator. Claire's hand in his. Pancakes shaped like mistakes. A working lock. A child asking if judges could tell. My family, he said. The word filled the warehouse without needing to be loud. Ray lunged, then not with strategy, only fury. Owen took him down hard, pinning him to the floor before Grant had to move. Ray cursed into the concrete as officers entered through the side door. Grant watched them cuff him. Ray lifted his head. This will follow you. Grant met his eyes. I know. You think you get to walk into the light. Grant looked toward the open warehouse door. Snow had started again outside, faint and silver under the police lights. No, he said. I think I have to keep walking. He left Ray there. No blood. No body in the harbor. No lesson written in violence. Only a man in handcuffs and a different kind of silence. Spring came slowly to Boston. It did not arrive all at once. It came in dirty snow shrinking along curbs, in wet pavement, in bare trees showing tiny green points. In the first day, June refused her mittens and declared winter had lost. Claire returned to the clinic on a steady schedule. She trained new nurses by speaking plainly and expecting competence. Patients liked her because she looked them in the eye. Mothers trusted her because she knew the difference between carelessness and exhaustion. When a woman came in crying because she could not afford an inhaler for her son, Claire did not say she understood in the empty way people often did. She said, "Sit down. We are going to figure out the next step." Then she called the assistance fund Grant had created through the clinic. His name was nowhere on it. Claire had insisted. "If it has your name, it is reputation," she said. Grant had signed the papers, and without it, then it is useful. He almost smiled. You are very hard on donors. You are not a donor. You are a man cleaning up a mess. Yes, she touched his cheek then lightly. But you are cleaning. The properties changed too. Not perfectly. Nothing that damaged so many people for so long became whole because one powerful man finally noticed. But locks were replaced. Heat worked. Mold was removed. Fire escapes were repaired. Tenants received numbers that connected to humans instead of deadlines. Eviction reviews slowed. Hardship cases were handled by people with names. Some tenants thanked the city. Some thanked luck. Most did not know Grant Callahan had anything to do with it. That suited him. At night, he still attended meetings, but there were fewer rooms with no windows. More contracts. More lawyers. More arguments with Elliot about compliance. Elliot hated legal business with theatrical exhaustion. You realize crime had less paperwork. Grant signed another document. Crime had worse consequences. Elliot looked at him. Listen to you. Growth is disgusting. Owen, standing by the door, said, he also owns a lunchbox now. Grant looked up. That is June's. It has your sandwich in it. Claire packed extra. Elliot leaned back smiling. Patrick Callahan's son brought low by diagonal sandwiches. Grant's pen stopped. Not low, he said. Elliot's smile softened. No, not low. Summer warmed the city. Fall painted it gold. By December, snow returned to Boston. Not the cruel kind that had driven June into the night. Soft snow. Gentle snow. Snow that made the city quieter without making it dangerous. Claire's apartment smelled of sugar cookies and cinnamon. June stood on a stool at the counter wearing an apron too big for her, concentrating on frosting a cookie with 7 uneven eyes. Grant stood beside her with flour on one sleeve. You are using a lot of eyes. June did not look up. You see everything. Claire laughed from the stove. He misses plenty. Grant looked at her. Name one thing. You miss the fact that June put sprinkles in your coat pocket. Grant looked down. June froze. Claire raised an eyebrow. Grant reached into his pocket and pulled out a handful of green and red sprinkles. June whispered surprise. Owen sat at the kitchen table assembling a toy castle with the grim focus of a man defusing a bomb. Elliot read the instructions upside down and claimed that made him more objective. Tara was coming later. Denise had sent a card. Dr. Price had helped June make an ornament shaped like Captain Waffles. The apartment was full. Grant stood in the middle of it and remembered his penthouse. Its clean counters, its empty rooms, its perfect silence. He had thought silence meant peace. He had been wrong. Claire came up beside him, wiping her hands on a towel. You went quiet. I was listening. To what? He looked around. June singing nonsense at the cookies. Owen muttering at the castle. Elliot arguing with a plastic turret. The radiator clicking. The snow at the windows. Claire breathing beside him. This. Claire slipped her hand into his. He closed his fingers around hers without hesitation now. June turned from the counter holding up the cookie. Mr. Grant, I made you. The cookie looked wounded. Grant accepted it with great seriousness. It is accurate. Claire leaned closer. It has 7 eyes and no mouth. Grant examined it. I am observant and restrained. Owen said from the table. The frosting hairline is generous. Grant looked at him. June gasped. Be nice to Cookie Grant. Owen bowed his head. My apologies. June smiled satisfied, then ran to the refrigerator. I made something else. She pulled down a drawing and held it with both hands. 3 people stood in the snow. 1 small, 1 medium, 1 tall. A stuffed seal sat beside them because June had recently become strict about family accuracy. Above all of them was a rainbow so large it filled the page from corner to corner. There was no dark building, no open door, no mother on the floor, just snow color and hands joined together. Claire's fingers tightened around Grant's. June lifted the drawing higher. This is us. Grant crouched so he was level with her. It is beautiful. You always say that. I always mean it. June studied his face. Then she turned the drawing around and pointed to the tall figure. That's you. I guessed. You're not black anymore. Grant looked closer. She had colored him dark blue with a yellow scarf and 1 red mitten. No. Black is for scary doors now. His throat tightened. Claire looked away, wiping at her cheek with the towel. June taped the drawing to the refrigerator herself. It joined spelling papers, clinic notes, a photo of Claire and June at the park, and a small picture of Grant asleep on the couch with Captain Waffles on his chest, taken by June, and printed by Owen against Grant's wishes. June patted the new drawing flat. There, official. Claire smiled. Official what? June looked at them as if the answer was obvious. Family. The word moved through the kitchen. Owen stopped fighting the castle pieces. Elliot looked down at the instructions. Claire looked at Grant. Grant looked at the drawing. A year ago, a child had found him outside a restaurant and mistaken him for someone who could help. Maybe she had not mistaken him. Maybe she had seen something buried under all that ice and blood and silence. Not goodness exactly. Not innocence. Something smaller. Something still alive. Grant placed his hand gently against the refrigerator beside the drawing. Family, he said. June beamed. Claire leaned into his side. Outside, snow covered Boston in white. Inside, the cookies burned slightly on the bottom because everyone forgot the timer. No one cared. Grant ate the 7-eyed cookie while June watched for his review. It was too sweet uneven and mostly frosting. He swallowed carefully. Well, June waited, eyes bright. Grant looked at Claire, then at the child who had walked through snow and knocked on the door of a monster without knowing monsters were supposed to stay monsters. It's perfect, he said. June grinned so wide it changed the whole room. And this time, when the city went quiet under the snow, Grant Callahan did not mistake the silence for emptiness. he knew what waited inside it. A woman's laugh, a child's drawing, a door that locked, a light left on, a home